Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Ronin Leadership Podcast. We're doing this again on a nice, actually very nice Friday afternoon or morning, I should say. I'm still having my coffee here, so I'm still trying to wake up. But first of all, I want to thank all of you for subscribing to the channel. Our subscribership is really growing. It seems like it's growing, on a weekly basis. So I thank all of you for number one, subscribing, but also telling your friends, your family, and sometimes I joke, even your enemies about, because they probably need to learn about leadership anyway, about the podcast. And if you haven't done so already, I have two books out on leadership, The Art of Ronin Leadership, my first one, which is more of a kind of high level view of my life and in leadership and the mistakes I've made along the way and hopefully learn from them to become a better leader. And then based on your feedback, I wrote a second one, The Art of Executing Ronin Leadership Strategies, which is more of a how-to, how do you build a team and how do you get budget? How do you influence the C-suite? How do you practice continuous improvement and strategic integration and all those things? And so you can get those from mikehowardauthor.com and also on Amazon. So hit the like button, subscribe button, and again, thank you all. So get that out of the way and get to the heart of the program. So I'm really, really excited today for this podcast. The guest that we have today, Bob Hayes, is a managing partner of a company that he started called Headwaters Wealth Management out of Boise, Idaho. Bob and I have known each other for many, many years. When I was a baby CSO at Microsoft, we first met. Bob is in the financial advising business, best of the best in his class. And but I thought that having Bob on would be great to walk through a different kind of business journey. We have a lot of security folks that come on here, chief security officers and other folks, but it's great when we have somebody from a different enterprise. So Bob, welcome, my friend, to the show.
Thanks, Mike. Honored to be here. Love watching your podcasts, and you obviously have quite the pedigree when it comes to team building and leadership. So I've enjoyed watching you over the last couple decades.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So I guess to get started, and it's kind of routine, but it's also fun, is to delve into, so Bob Hayes is the managing partner for Headwaters Wealth Management. How did Bob Hayes get there? What did your journey look like?
Well, starting out in this business 30 some years ago, just as a financial advisor, and slowly working my way up into management and bouncing from one team building experience to another, and finally conceptualizing the idea around what I really wanted to do, which was build a team of one, a cohesive team, where you bring the expertise of multiple different folks to bear to solve a problem. And obviously in our business, the problem is managing clients' money. And there's multiple facets of that. And I found over the years that no one person is truly great at everything. And so what we ended up doing was conceptualizing this idea of finding experts in different fields, CFAs, CFPs, the different aspects of this industry and this business, and bringing them together to work for one client, rather than have the typical advisory strategy of your financial advisor does everything. They're the marketing, they're the sales, they're building portfolios, or they're outsourcing it to somebody else. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to do everything in-house to give our clients a better experience. So we pulled together these different experts, and that's how we created the firm.
Cool. Kind of like the Avengers of financial advising or something like that, right?
Well, I mean, you can joke about it, but that's exactly what it is. I mean, on their own, nobody can beat Thanos,
Right.
right? You needed to have multiple people and multiple disciplines coming at it in order to beat the guy. And that was kind of our strategy. Well, it was a strategy I worked on back in my Seattle days, and pulling together different pieces of the puzzle. And when I finally moved here to Boise, I was able to really, find like-minded people.
Yeah.
And we put this together. We were essentially at the forefront of this strategy, this idea, this leadership idea, and bringing people together. And now we're finding that throughout our industry, everybody's mimicking this.
Oh, is that right?
So,
That's cool.
Yeah,
Isn't that awesome?
it's very interesting to talk with private equity companies and different industry folks and have them say, well, we're thinking about doing this. And I say, well, we've been doing it for 20 years. And so
Wow.
it's been quite an adventure.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And there's no safety net either. It's not like you're working for a Microsoft or Google or what have you. This is all you guys.
It is, and we all might. So I have 4 other partners. There's 5 partners in the firm. Kind of how we came up with the name Headwaters. So if you think about how the Columbia River out west, we have that Columbia River starts. It's part of the Snake River, the Clearwater River, the Salmon River, and they all kind of come together. And all of those rivers started out as streams somewhere. And so the concept is you have all these different rivers coming into one, but eventually they started at a headwaters.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's cool. So I'm going to go back a little bit in your journey. So is this
now don't date me here.
Oh yeah.
How far back are we going?
Well, 1930 when you were born. No, that would be closer to my journey.
Yeah.
So is this not necessarily financial advising, but in terms of the whole idea of investing or in the finance world in general, was this something that you were always interested in, or how did this come about? This, just the choice of this career path. How did that happen?
Well, I mean, growing up in the 80s, you think about, those were my formidable years. I was in high school in the 80s, and you had shows like Wall Street. It was a big hit, and it was very much a money-centric culture. It was the me culture.
True.
And that's what started me thinking about this business. So, for instance, when I was in high school, all my friends for high school graduation were given trips to Europe. Their parents would be like, all right, you're graduating, here's a Rolex, here's a trip to Europe, things like that.
Must be nice.
Well, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
What I got was my father gave me $2,000 into a brokerage account and said I could do whatever I want with it, but I couldn't take it out until I graduated college. So, so that's what started me on the investing path, I suppose. But I had no intentions of being a financial advisor when I went to college. I went to college to become a lawyer.
Okay.
Political science and English, that was my track. That's what I wanted to do. And it wasn't until my senior year, I was taking some law courses to get law school out of the way first. And one of the cases was a mock case that we had to do. And in that mock case, I was forced to defend a murdering rapist, and who said that they were innocent. And so I was defending them. And halfway through the court case, which was a whole semester, found out that that he basically said, I did it. Here's how I did it. Here's where the bodies are. And I was forced to have to continue to defend the person. And I had to sit down with my professor at the time. And he said, this is what you have to do. If you don't do it, you could be disbarred. They could get off on technicalities. Your job is to defend your client. And I said, this is just not an industry I want to be in. So I decided I didn't want to be an attorney anymore. And going back to this whole 80s thing, I said, well, I'm young, 21 years old, and what am I going to do? I want to make a lot of money. And I went and got in this business because I really liked it. And it was something that I thought I could make a lot of money in, which are probably not the best reasons to get into a job. But at some point within the first 2 years of being in this industry, I really started focusing on the leadership side of it.
Okay.
And I had leadership roles before. In college, I was basically the supervisor for a cleaning company. In grade school, I convinced kids to sell trinkets in my neighborhood. So I had always had that kind of desire to lead people. So after a couple of years in this business, living up in Bellevue, I got my first opportunity to manage a branch. And from there, that turned into managing the 4 offices in the Seattle area. And then that turned into being a regional manager in charge of everything Northern California up through Oregon and Washington. And I really enjoyed it. And that was your typical top-down approach to managing and building teams. And it just continued to morph and roll from there until we started Headwaters.
Yeah, that's interesting. Even as a kid, you were like, organizing things and getting people together and stuff like that.
Well, it was funny. I used to make these things called pine cone men.
Okay.
And they were, if you think about a pine cone, if you flip it over, it's pine cone.
Right.
I would take sticks and I would stick sticks up in the edge of the pine cone so they were like legs. And I had little acorn tops that I would put on for hats. And I was a little kid and I'd walk around with a wagon in my neighborhood and I would sell these things to all the neighbors. Well, what neighbor is going to turn these down, right?
Of course, you're a little kid with a wagon.
Little Bobby selling stuff. So all my friends started saying, well, we want to sell some stuff. And I said, great. So I would make these pine cone men, and I had a little army of kids with wagons out there selling pine cone men, and I'd get my cut. And
I love it.
That
You're
was
an entrepreneur at a young age.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
But I've always enjoyed, fixing things, solving problems, but leading people and leading people in a way that makes them happy.
Yeah.
I truly believe that everybody can win. Some people win more than others.
Yeah.
But I think everybody can win.
Yeah.
If you build a team and everybody's rowing in the same direction, you've got a team of winners.
Right.
So.
How do you, as you've grown, we all, we end up like, I always say, leadership is a continuous journey. Like you're never there. And the day you say you're there, it's the day you start believing your own press and BS, and then you start regressing, right?
Exactly.
So how do you describe your leadership style?
Well, my leadership style has definitely changed over the last 25 years of, leadership capacity. Most of the leadership that I had done in the past was your traditional enterprise top down. I remember when I was with my first brokerage firm, Oldie. Oldie was a private company where you had this guy up here and he was the boss, and he had a very hands-off approach. His approach was, Bob, here's your budget, don't screw it up. Okay. And that was the mandate. And so you had to kind of go out and figure it out yourself, but it was a very hands-off leadership approach. And so I was able to kind of make choices, and everything from who I'm hiring and firing to who, what office we're going to move into, picking locations and things like that. And so, but again, that's very traditional. I have a boss that oversees me. then I'm a boss of different managers and they're the boss of different employees, and it all rolls downhill or it all rolls uphill.
Right.
And so at that point in my career, I think my goal was always to, this goes back to, I think everybody wins if everybody's happy. If I can show support to the people directly below me and they show support to the people below them, then we're all going to be successful. And the guy above me is going to end up showing support to me.
Right.
And that was really the process for the first 5 years, basically, when I was managing from that aspect. I think that at that point, management changed, and we did this thing where Oldie sold itself to H&R Block, the big tax company, because H&R Block was simply crunching numbers, and they're going, look, we're doing 1 in 7 tax returns in America. If we can sell those people financial services, then that's a win-win for everybody. Well, my leadership role then became, how do I help integrate the culture of financial advisors into the culture of tax people, because they're two totally different cultures.
Sure.
And so it was a matter of then leadership changed into, how do we do it? Show me it's successful. Prove to me it can be done. And then managing those relationships from there.
What are the core differences between, tax people and financial people?
Well, generally, so for the tax offices, the H&R Block tax people obviously didn't make remotely the amount of money that traditional financial advisors make. So one of the first problems was my guys, my team, would pull into a tax office and they'd pull in a Jaguar. When the accountants had Hondas. Well, that's problem number one.
Right.
Problem number two, again, it's optics. You're pulling in a fancy car. You're walking in a 3-piece Armani suit. Just culturally, there was a big difference. And then again, expectations. And that's, I think, the other important thing with leadership is being able to explain to people what the expectations are.
Exactly. Yep.
I think that, our firm at the time, when we were with H&R Block Financial, not H&R Block Tax, but H&R Block Financial, did a poor job at the time of setting these expectations. So what ended up happening is the financial advisors would come in. They weren't meeting people. You hear these days kind of the buzzwords, meet somebody at their level.
Right.
They weren't meeting the other side at their level. And their expectation was, you're going to send me referrals. And that's the end of the conversation. And so there was a lot of trial and error. And as you can imagine, when you do that, if you're a financial advisor who's used to moving 100 miles an hour, you're going to give it one shot. If it doesn't work, you're like, I don't need that. I'm going to keep doing what I do that makes me a bunch of money. And so it really turned into a situation where we had to slow walk our team through the process. We literally had to tell them, you cannot go to that particular office. You don't get to just rush out there and do it. You need to slow down, think about what you bring to them, and how you're going to articulate to them what you would like them to bring to you. It's a partnership.
Yep.
And so that was my first real challenge, was the synergy between these two.
Yeah, these two different cultures, and bring them together.
Eventually, that experiment didn't work.
Okay.
Now, for us in the Seattle Puget Sound area, it did work. We were able to eventually make it work. I think that's how you and I finally met.
Yep.
Was through that process, and I've stayed good friends with those accountants over the years.
Yep.
But it didn't work throughout the country, and eventually H&R Block threw in the towel on the financial advisory side of the business. And found that cross-sell to when they threw in the towel and sold the firm to Americans.
Yeah. It's interesting because you mentioned that you were able to, at least at a micro level, bridge the gap between the two cultures, right? And make it work. And I remember like the first time we met, there's a physical wall, and then there's Bill. But that physical wall was just that. It was a physical wall. It wasn't a wall that kept the two parts from working hand in hand, perhaps in my behalf, for instance, right? Or your client's behalf. So it was interesting that at a macro level, I guess H&R Block couldn't figure that out, but it is what it is.
Well, and it's been a challenge throughout our industry. I mean, you look at the bank, the big banks now. So, fast forward to 2008. I had a friend that was working for Bank of America, and he had always told me, "Hey, you should come work at Bank of America and be on our investment side." And I always said, "No, I don't want to do that because you're not really an investment firm. You're just a bank that's selling products to the bank clients." And so I didn't really want to do that. And it was in summer of 2008 when we were going through the big financial crash that Merrill Lynch ended up selling itself to Bank of America.
Okay.
And he called me up that day, and I had seen the headlines also. Phone rings. I see who it is. I answer. I said, "Yes, I'll do it." And he's like, "Yeah, I haven't asked you anything." I go, "Yeah, I know what you're going to ask me about." And so that's how I ended up in Idaho. Was he had known my background, being instrumental in that cross sell, that merger with H&R Block Financial on the tax side. And he said, "So we have all these bank branches in Idaho, and we have 2 Merrill Lynch offices. I want you to come down there and work at combining the two." And I said, "Sure." So I'll relocate to Idaho. My wife and I were looking for a great place to raise the kids, and there's no better place than this. I mean,
right.
So we moved here to do that. And I was not in a leadership position at that point. I was being groomed for it, but I was not in a leadership position at that point because they had to figure out the merger of the two first. And that merger ended up going pretty poorly, at least poorly from the standpoint it wasn't what Bank of America thought. Bank of America thought they were going to gobble up Merrill. And what ended up happening is Merrill ended up gobbling up the Bank of America investment side. So then you had to take the bank brokers who were completely different than the Merrill Lynch brokers and try to merge those two together. So again, another challenge. And eventually I ended up becoming the resident director for Merrill Lynch in Boise. So, and that's where I started going around my immediate world, picking out the best people to create this team concept that I had down the road. And that's what we did. And so in 2014, we ended up leaving Merrill Lynch and came over here and have not looked back. It's just been fantastic.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. Now I want to dissect that part a little bit for two parts. Number one, how, and you can answer this in any sequence you want. Number one, how hard was it for you to decide to pull the trigger and get away from an enterprise, right?
Right.
Enterprises are good and bad. The good part is you've got an enterprise and you got benefits, you got this and that, blah, 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 right? And then to pull off to do your own thing. So that's number one. And number two, you mentioned, looking at talent. When you were looking at the folks that you wanted to bring over, and this is kind of also at a macro level, what do you look for in top talent?
Well, two things. First of all, I talk about this all the time with our team. I look at everything like a puzzle. And a puzzle is never complete unless you have all the pieces of the puzzle. And so you start with, this is where I want to be. This is my goal. This is the spot. And the same thing happens with financial planning. You start with where do you want to be at a particular point, and then how are you going to get there? And so in this case, look at this and say, okay, I want to have a firm that does this. I want to own my own company that does this for clients. And what pieces of the puzzle do I currently have, and what piece of the puzzle do I need? Well, I knew I already had. I'm all about operations and compliance and kind of vision, you know. But I didn't have somebody that understood quant analytics and mathematics, and could.
That would be me.
Yeah, right. No, it really is true. That time you told me that 1 + 1 is 2. So,
see?
Yeah.
Math genius right here.
It is. We can all learn something from you, Mike.
Right.
So, so there's a piece of the puzzle that you need. And I found that in somebody who's, become my best friend, which again goes to the next part of the question, which is, so you have the piece of the puzzle you need, but you also need to live with those people. We spend more time with our partners than I do with my wife.
Sure.
I'm here 5 days a week, 9 hours a day, with the same people, day in, day out. And so you have to like them. And sometimes you like them more than other times.
Sure.
But I think that, we always talk about being a family here, and every family has, it's a certain amount of dysfunction. You might like your brother more than your sister, or you fight from time to time. There's squabbles. Having partners is no different than that. And so just like a family, you have to find a way to work through different personalities. And as long as everybody in the family is moving in the same direction, you're good.
Right.
So yeah, so those are the two things I think that are the most important when building a team. Is number one, understanding, making sure you have those pieces of the puzzle, and two, making sure the pieces of the puzzle are people that you want to be a family with.
Right. Did you ever have any doubts when you were pulling the trigger on leaving Merrill that this was going to work?
I didn't. Now, I think that is a product of my past. I had already been involved in multiple acquisitions. I mean, I was with the same company basically the entire time, but it had changed hands, changed leadership 3 or 4 times in my career. And so I wasn't worried about that. I had also, I'd built my book, my clientele, and I have a good solid clientele that, they're more family, as they're more family than they are clients. And so no, I wasn't worried about that at all. But I think that we definitely had partners that were concerned about that at the time.
Sure.
As a matter of fact, I can remember sitting in a restaurant with the team before we left, and kind of talking about whether it was going to work. And it ranges from me, I'm all rah, I got the pom-poms out there and everything's going to be perfect and we're going to take over the world, all the way down to someone that's just sitting there going, we're all going bankrupt.
Yeah.
And so I remember looking everybody in the eye and to say, hey, listen, no one's going bankrupt because I will backstop anything that you guys lose, knowing that they weren't going to lose.
Right.
Because we had put the right team together.
Yeah.
Great people, a great story. And I knew it was going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, leaders have to have that vision, right? You have to be able to impart, as you did with your troops, that vision that we can do this, and we're headed in the right path. It's not always easy, but you obviously have done it and your company's a success. So kudos to you and the team, obviously, because it's certainly, you're the leader, but it's a team effort.
Well, and I wouldn't even say that I'm the leader. I mean, the reality is we have five equal partners. nothing here gets done without a partner meeting where we all agree, which is obviously creates its own set of challenges, right?
Yeah.
Because this is the first time in my career that I have not had a traditional top-down leadership approach. I mean, even at Merrill Lynch, as the resident director, there's a pecking order.
Yep.
Here, there's no pecking order. You have 5 equal people, and I could come up with an idea that I just think is the greatest idea ever. But if I can't convince my partners that it's a great idea, then it's not ever going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's the challenge for each of us, is trying to navigate different personalities and different needs and desires and direction that people want to go. And I just feel like as long as you're all in the boat rowing the same direction,
Yep.
you're good. Okay. There's going to be times when someone's not rowing as fast as somebody else. And vice versa at any given point. But as long as you're going in the same direction, you're going to end up getting where you want to be.
Yeah. I agree. So along this journey, that you're still on, can you think of a time when, there was something that you did, whether it was, some strategy or something that didn't go as well as you expected it, a mistake or something like that, but you learned from it and it became a lesson for you?
Well, yeah, daily. I mean, I think the first mistake that we made, I think, goes back to that whole H&R Block financial merger, and not stepping back and seeing where you are and really looking at your landscape before you go in. It was so you want to use something that maybe you're used to, having a military type background. You can't just run into a battle. If you can't just say ready, go, and everybody runs and no one's talked about it, no one's figured it out. Right. There's strategy involved. We're going to do this first and that second, and so that was kind of the first big lesson that I learned was, no matter how good you are, you need to make sure that all of your people are that good.
Good. I like that.
So we learned a lot from that, and so we finally had to pull back. And there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I screwed up. I'm a big believer in take a step back to take 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
So, especially when it comes to leadership. So, that was the first big lesson that I learned. The second lesson that I've learned, and obviously still dealing with that, is when you have partners, whether it's business partners or a spouse, there is give and take. You cannot ramrod through your ideas.
Yeah.
It's easier to lead than it is to push.
Yeah.
So that's always an ongoing challenge. And quite frankly, that's an ongoing challenge, whether you're in a leadership position, building a team, or if you are in an advisory position, helping clients along, in any business, really.
Right.
So
that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
I like that. And you're right, though. You can't just tell people. You have to influence without authority sometimes.
Right. Well, there was that quote from Hunt for Red October where they're trying to figure out how to get the guys off the nuclear submarine. He's like, how do you get somebody to want to get off a nuclear submarine? Okay. Yeah. You can order them off, right, and they may or may not go. You can try to throw them off, but you're going to have casualties. But if you can convince them to want to get off the sub, it's quicker, more efficient. So,
yeah, that's cool. I like that analogy too. I'm going to steal it. So you mentioned, that you spend obviously more time, at work than you do with your spouse, and that, one would assume, and you can correct me, that, especially in this volatile financial climate we're in, uh, things can tend to get stressful. No, I have never seen you stressed, but then I'm not there in the office, 5 days a week with you, right? I've never
Right.
seen you stressed. When we see each other, it's usually very social, and so stress-free environment. So how do you handle stress? Do you feel stressed at times? How do you handle it?
I feel stressed a lot. And part of the reason, and I think it's important for people to understand this, when you are an advisor in any business, you're a doctor or an attorney or financial advisor, um, you are responsible for another person. So one of the mantras that we always have here at Headwaters is we want every client to sleep well at night. Now,
I like that.
that's a
Yeah.
kind of a catch-all term for everybody, but we really want people to sleep well at night. It doesn't mean that the markets can't go down or markets can't go up, but we want them to know that we got it.
Mhm.
Okay, if there's a problem, we're going to take care of it, but you don't need to worry about it. So if you think about your own personal journey, before you met me, obviously,
Yeah.
you're probably stressed about money. Most
Yeah.
people do. It's the reason for most divorces in this country. They're financial reasons. So people are stressed about that. So imagine the stress that the average person feels about finances, whether it's sending kids to college or buying a house or paying taxes or whatever. Well, we manage 300 households. We have 300 people that we
Wow.
feel that same stress level, um, that we feel for ourselves.
That's heavy.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of stress. And I think that stress can be alleviated by automating your life. You automate your bills. Now you don't have to think about paying bills all the time. You automate your savings. You don't have to think about writing a check for the savings all the time.
Hmm.
You use your Outlook calendar to automate your life.
Yep.
So Sunday, the chime comes up on your phone that, oh, I've got a business meeting tomorrow. You don't get tripped up, so you're not so worried about those things anymore. So my stress level is, for me personally, can be very high, but it's handled in a lot of cases by knowing that I'm organized. So I
Yep.
guess the short answer to that is organization helps with stress.
Yeah. I agree.
And then on a personal basis, I when I get stressed, I read the Bible.
Hmm.
That's helpful. And having a fantastic spouse. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
if she'll watch this. If she does, I'll get some points. But the reality is that when I come home, she knows I'm stressed. She knows I've had
Right.
a long day
Right.
for a myriad of reasons. But having a spouse that understands you, understands your environment, can go a long way to alleviating all of your stress.
I agree. I agree. When you're on vacation, can you turn it off?
Yeah, I'm pretty good at turning it off nightly.
Good. Good.
It is, and not everybody can do that.
Nope. Most
But
people can't actually.
again, that's where it comes down to this automation.
Mhm.
When I go on vacation, I go on vacation. I try to do very little work on my phone. Obviously with iPads now and phones, you can log in and get things that you weren't able to get years ago. I remember going to the Bahamas in late 90s, early 2000s with Sarah, and we were someplace where we had no internet. I mean, there was no internet back then, but there was a payphone. There was literally a payphone on this little island in the Bahamas. And that's what I had to go get on in order to call my office to make sure there were no problems. That's how checked out I was okay being. So
I think that's healthy. I think that's very, very healthy. And everybody's got to
You,
slice that in their own way, but
yep,
you need to basically unass yourself from business when you're on vacation.
right.
Otherwise, it's not a vacation.
Well, look, some of the best vacations are when we go up in the mountains where you don't have any cell service.
Yeah, right.
I am not happy with Elon Musk right now and this whole Starlink satellite get cell phone service anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
I like the idea of saying, "Hey, sorry everybody, I'm camping,
I'm
or
camping. Yeah,
I'm out on the boat, and I can't get any internet because then I know everyone's got to figure it out on their own."
yep.
So,
That's actually reminds me of an episode in Yellowstone when they were uh, John Dutton, Kevin Costner's character. They were out, remember,
yep,
and he was getting sporadic cell. He moved the camp up the hill so that there was no cell.
yep.
So he could just be in peace.
There are very few people like that in the world now.
Yeah, there are.
Unfortunately, everybody is so dialed in all the
Yeah,
time. Um, I agree with you. I think it's unhealthy um, to always be on.
yep. You've
So,
got to divorce yourself from that. I guess one last question. This has been quite the journey, but your journey, obviously, I'm retired, sort of, but you're still in the working world.
yeah,
What does the future look like for you and Headwaters? What do you see ahead?
we get asked this all the time. We have a lot of people are interested in our company,
Hmm.
and because of what we've done, and we get asked about, what are your plans? Are you going to retire? And the answer is, I really like what I do. I'm not a button pusher. This isn't like working on a line at Boeing where you're just doing the same old thing every day. I feel like we're changing lives here.
Hmm.
Um, and we have generations with us. I have grandparents, kids, grandkids, all in the same family, all that we're working with, and we've
Huh.
gotten to know them. So for me, not working anymore would almost it'd be tantamount to saying I'm not going to have friends anymore.
Yeah.
Because the reality is my clients have become friends and family. And so if I wasn't working, I would probably still be advising them
Yeah. Yeah.
on things. Now, there's probably a chance at some point when I'm a lot older that I might want to spend more time with grandkids or something like that, and pull back my time. But this is one of the great industries where you can work. So, I mean, Warren Buffett's still working.
Yeah. Right.
Charlie Munger, isn't that guy like 300 years old?
Yeah.
He's
At
still
least.
working. So this is a great business where you can actually work for forever if you want to. And as long as I'm being effective and able to take care of clients,
Yeah.
then I'm going to keep working.
Good. Good. I hope so. Hey, Bob, this has been great. I think it's really cool to get someone like you. Again, we don't just have people in the security field or law enforcement on the program, but having someone like you, a totally different field from what I grew up in, talking about leadership and seeing that there's a lot of great synergies and intersections when it comes to this thing called leadership, right?
Sure is.
I consider you a great leader, and it's been fun to watch your journey and continue to watch your journey. So appreciate you and your team and for all that you do for me and for a lot of people. And I hope you've enjoyed being on the show.
It's been great, Mike, and I'm glad that you're doing this. This is something that just is not taught. Spencer is his first year in college right now, and this is just something that's not taught, and it should be. Because as to your point, this isn't just about one industry.
Yeah.
This is everything. This is business. It's your home life, leading your family, leading your children. Leadership skills are something that you need to hone. And we need more people out there that are willing to share their successes and failures. So thank you for
man.
doing this.
I appreciate it. Well, that's it. That's it. That's it for this edition of the Ronin Leadership Podcast. Again, hit the like button, subscribe button, please tell your friends and family and everybody about it. We'll have another podcast next week. And so until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Continue to be good Ronin leaders.